close your eyes for a moment, now think of the thing you want the most, the dream, the leap, the change. Do you feel it, that sharp edge of fear just behind the dream? That's not the world holding you back. That's not fate or failure or bad luck. That's overthinking. Overthinking is the silent killer of more dreams than failure ever will. It is the thief of now, the jailer of action, the illusion of control wrapped in the costume of wisdom. You believe you're planning, but you're paralyzed. You believe you're being smart, but you're stuck in the same thought loop again and again, trying to think your way into a perfect future that will never come in the form your mind imagines. Eckhart Tolle says, "You are not your thoughts," but we forget. We identify with them. We let them narrate our lives. We replay every mistake, rehearse every possibility, and talk ourselves out of every opportunity. Let me tell you a story. A young woman I knew wanted to leave her job and start her own business. She had the skill, the fire, the connections. Every time she was ready to act, the voices in her head would start, "What if it fails? What if you're not ready? What will people think?" She thought and thought and thought until years passed. One day she met someone younger, with less experience, doing exactly what she had dreamed of doing. She cried, not because someone else succeeded, but because she had spent years stuck in her mind while the world moved on without her. Overthinking is the mind's way of avoiding discomfort. It disguises itself as preparation, but it's really procrastination dressed up in logic. You fear pain, so you imagine every painful outcome to avoid it. But here's the truth. The pain of regret is always worse than the pain of failure, always. Real transformation begins when you step out of the mind and into the moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Right now there are no problems, only situations. Right now there is no fear, only presence. Right now you are not thinking, you are being. And that's where your power lives. Look around. How many lives have been changed, not by deep thought, but by bold movement? Howard Schultz wasn't born with Starbucks in his hands. He saw something, felt something, and moved. Rosa Parks didn't overthink that moment on the bus. She just knew. Steve Jobs got fired from his own company. Do you think he sat down and thought himself into success? No, he kept creating, kept going, kept moving. The secret is this. Your mind will always find something to worry about. That's its job. But that doesn't mean you have to listen. You are not the thinker. You are the space in which thinking happens. Let the thoughts pass like clouds in the sky, not chains around your soul. What if the breakthrough you're waiting for isn't hidden in the 1,000th thought, but in the first action? So when your mind screams, "What if?" whisper back, "So what?" When doubt knocks, open the door and walk through it anyway. When fear rises, meet it like an old friend, not an enemy. This moment is all there ever is. There's no future to prepare for. There's no past to regret. Just this, just now. And it's waiting for you to show up, not with a plan, but with presence. Overthinking is not intelligence. It's self-sabotage disguised as wisdom. It wears the mask of careful planning, cautious thinking, and smart strategy, but Behind that mask is fear, not wisdom. Fear is the fear of being wrong, the fear of looking foolish, the fear of failure, the fear of judgment. And so the mind creates stories, infinite scenarios, endless possibilities, and we tell ourselves we're being smart. We call it being responsible, analytical, or just thinking it through. But in reality, we are delaying life, delaying action, delaying ourselves. You might believe that by thinking longer, you'll make the perfect choice. But life does not reward you for perfect plans. It rewards you for courageous movement. Overthinking becomes a way to postpone risk. We pretend that if we think just a little more, we'll find a safe path with no discomfort, no loss, no mistakes. But that path doesn't exist. It never did. Thinking is useful until the point where it becomes obsessive. After that, it's just a cage built by your own hands with the key dangling right in front of you. If you would only stop trying to analyze the lock. The brain wants control, but life does not unfold according to control. Life unfolds according to presence. Overthinking is an addiction to control. You replay conversations, relive mistakes, rehearse outcomes. You think about what to say, how to say it, how it might be received, how it might go wrong. And while you're doing all of this in your head, real life is happening all around you, and you're not in it. You're missing it. You're thinking your way out of your own existence. There's a deep difference between wisdom and overthinking. Wisdom comes from stillness, from clarity, from presence. Overthinking comes from fear and ego. Wisdom flows through you when you're not trying so hard to think your way into safety. Is that quiet knowing, the calm certainty that doesn't require 10 pros and cons lists. But when you're overthinking, you can't hear that wisdom. You drown it out with noise, with internal chatter, with endless loops that go nowhere. Think about how many times you've talked yourself out of doing something you deeply wanted because you overthought it. How many conversations you avoided. How many dreams you delayed. How many times you stayed quiet, stayed small, stayed still. That wasn't intelligence. That was fear in disguise. And the cruel irony is, you probably felt smart doing it. You told yourself it wasn't the right time, you needed more research, you had to be sure, but how long have you been waiting to be sure? There's a difference between thinking wisely and thinking endlessly. Wisdom feels light, overthinking feels heavy. Wisdom feels aligned, overthinking feels anxious. When your thoughts start to spiral, ask yourself, am I being wise or am I just afraid? Most of the time, you'll find you already know what to do. You're just scared to do it. And that's okay. But don't confuse that fear for intelligence. It's not. It's just fear pretending to protect you, while it quietly robs you of your life. Your mind creates problems that don't exist in the present moment. This is the illusion we live with every day. We believe our thoughts are protecting us, preparing us, guiding us, but more often than not, they are simply creating stories, imagining dangers, fabricating what-ifs that have no foundation in reality. The present moment is really the problem. It is the mind's interpretation of the moment. the projection into a possible future, or the fixation on a painful past that creates the suffering. When you strip everything down to what is actually happening right now, most of the problems vanish. You are breathing. You are alive. The ground is beneath you. The sky is above you. Maybe you're sitting in a room, maybe walking outside, maybe reading this. And yet, despite the simplicity and safety of the moment, your mind may be spinning stories. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if they don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? These aren't truths. They're projections. And they're always about a moment that isn't here yet. The future is only ever a concept in the mind. It does not exist except as thought. The past too is gone. It lives on only as memory. But the mind clings to both, and in doing so it creates anxiety, stress, regret, and fear. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed or afraid. Was the threat real and immediate, or was it something you were imagining might happen later? Most of our pain comes not from what's happening, but from what we think might happen. We worry about the conversation tomorrow, the bill next week, the decision someone else might make, the possibility of rejection, of failure, of loss. But in this very moment, this breath, this second, those things don't exist. And yet we suffer as if they do. That is the power of the mind, and that is also the trap. We become so lost in mental narratives that we forget how to simply be. A child doesn't worry about next week. A bird doesn't panic about whether its song will be heard. They live fully in the now. And in that now there is peace, not because the world is perfect, but because presence doesn't require perfection. It only requires attention. Eckhart Tolle teaches that most of our suffering is unnecessary. It is created by resistance to what is, or by identification with thoughts that are not true. Your thoughts are not reality, they are about reality, and often they are not even accurate. The mind imagines betrayal where there is trust. It anticipates loss where there is love. It creates enemies where there are none. The moment you step out of your mind and into the present, those imagined problems begin to dissolve. Right now, in this very breath, you are okay. The fears are stories. The stress is a mental habit. The pain is often a memory dressed as a prophecy. When you return to the now, the noise quiets. The weight lifts. And you realize the only real thing is this moment, and it's enough. Action ends overthinking faster than answers ever will. The mind is a master of delay. It convinces you that you must first know everything, anticipate every outcome, and eliminate every risk before you can begin. It tells you that once you figure it all out, then you'll move, then you'll speak, then you'll try. But that day rarely comes, because answers, true, complete, perfect answers, almost never arrive the way we imagine. They aren't found in a thought. They are revealed through action. Action cuts through the fog of indecision like a blade. It brings clarity that thinking alone can't give you. The moment you take a step, even a small one, you gain information that your mind could never predict. You get feedback, you feel something shift, you break the mental loop, even just for a moment. It's like moving from a dark room into the light. Suddenly, what was murky and abstract becomes visible, tangible, real. What seemed terrifying in your head begins to shrink in the light of motion. You can't think your way into confidence. You build it through action. You can't think your way into a perfect plan. You shape it by doing. You can't think your way into healing, into creativity, into leadership, into love. You arrive there by living imperfectly, bravely, presently. We live in a culture obsessed with planning and predicting. We're taught to prepare, to be cautious, to map out every step before we leap. But the truth is, some paths only appear once you start walking. You don't get the full vision at the beginning. You get one frame, one step, one glimpse, and then the next step reveals itself. Action doesn't just lead to results. It leads to wisdom, to transformation, to self-trust. It's not just about doing something, it's about becoming someone through the doing. Think of all the moments in your life when you felt stuck, really stuck. Now ask yourself, what changed it? Was it thinking harder, or was it finally deciding to act even though you were scared or uncertain? Often it's a single decision, a phone call made, a word spoken, a project started, a truth admitted, that breaks the loop. Not because it gives you all the answers, but because it pulls you back into reality. Overthinking is the mind trying to avoid discomfort. Action is the willingness to move through it. And the incredible thing is, once you act, even if things go wrong, the fear loses its power. You realize that mistakes don't destroy you. Failure doesn't end you. Embarrassment doesn't kill you. What hurts more, always, is staying stuck in the loop. The pain of what if is worse than the pain of I tried. The mind says, let's figure this out first, but the body, the soul, the truth inside you says, just begin. Because beginning is how you figure it out. Overthinking is the enemy of intuition. It clouds the quiet knowing that lives beneath all the noise. Intuition doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it whispers. It nudges. It gently points in a direction, not with facts and figures, but with a feeling. And yet most of us have become strangers to that inner voice, because we've learned to trust our thoughts more than our truth. We weigh options endlessly. We consult others. We replay scenarios. And in doing so, we drown out the one voice that actually knows, the voice within. Intuition isn't irrational. It's beyond rational. It doesn't operate in the realm of logic because it doesn't need to. It's not reckless. It's deeply rooted in presence, awareness, and connection. But overthinking doesn't trust that. It wants certainty, guarantees, control. The mind wants data. The soul wants alignment, and so a war begins inside us. A war between the knowing that feels true and the thoughts that feel safe. You felt it before, that moment when something just felt right, even if it made no sense on paper, or the moment something felt off, even though it looked good from the outside. That's intuition. And how many times have you ignored it? How many times did you talk yourself out of what you knew in your gut? How often did you choose what was smart over what was true? Overthinking is a wall that separates you from your deeper self. It keeps you up in your head, spinning, analyzing, measuring every possible outcome. It's like trying to hear a soft melody while standing in a room full of shouting voices. The music is still playing, but you can't hear it through the noise. That's what the intuitive self feels like under the pressure of constant mental chat. Still there, still wise, but silenced by your refusal to trust it. Intuition doesn't explain, it feels. But that feeling is your compass. It's how life communicates with you when language fails. And yet we dismiss it. We wait for something more concrete, more rational, more logical. But while you wait for logic to give you permission, your moment passes. Your chance fades. And you're left wondering why you feel unfulfilled even when you did everything right. The truth is, intuition requires courage. It asks you to let go of the need to know everything, to move without all the answers, to trust without proof. Overthinking is afraid of that, because the mind fears what it can't control. It would rather stay in a loop of what-ifs than step into the unknown. But growth only happens in the unknown. Truth only lives there. The most powerful moments of your life won't come from thinking more, they'll come from trusting more. Not blindly, not recklessly, but deeply, from a place that doesn't need to shout to be heard, from the voice that's been with you all along, the one that already knows. Fear dressed as logic keeps you stuck in a life you don't want. It's not the loud kind of fear, the heart-pounding, adrenaline-rushing, obvious kind. No, this fear is subtle. It's disguised in reasonable thoughts, wrapped in convincing arguments, and delivered in a voice that sounds just like your own. It tells you you're being careful, practical, realistic. It says, this isn't the right time, you should wait, think it through, be sure. And it feels responsible, even wise. But underneath that well-crafted logic is fear, fear of change, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of stepping into something that can't be perfectly controlled. We've been trained to respect this kind of fear because it wears the costume of caution. And in some situations, caution is wise. But there's a difference between wisdom and avoidance. There's a difference between making a grounded decision and using logic to justify inaction. One is rooted in clarity, the other in fear pretending to be thoughtfulness. And this fear is clever. It doesn't scream at you to stop. It gently persuades you not to start. You think you're just waiting for the right time, but really, you're waiting for fear to give you permission. You think you're being smart, but really, you're hiding behind rationalizations that keep you from becoming the person you know you could be. It sounds like, what if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I lose what I have? And instead of challenging those fears, you translate them into strategy. You call it being realistic, but it's just fear whispering in a different language. Think of all the things you've talked yourself out of, the conversations you never had, the dreams you shelved, the chances you didn't take, not because they were impossible, but because fear came to you in the voice of logic and told you it wasn't smart. But you knew, deep down you knew, that quiet frustration inside you. That's not indecision, that's misalignment. It's the part of you that sees through the disguise and knows you're playing small. Fear dressed as logic is especially dangerous because it's so easy to believe. It uses your own intelligence against you. It convinces you that you're protecting yourself when really you're limiting yourself. You end up living a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels lifeless on the inside, safe but stagnant, predictable but passionless. You don't need to eliminate fear to move forward. You just need to recognize when fear is pretending to be something else. Learn its patterns, hear its tone, see through its disguise. The moment you stop letting fear wear the mask of logic, you start reclaiming your freedom, not by abandoning thought, but by choosing truth over comfort, choosing what feels alive over what feels easy, and knowing that the cost of a safe life is often the life you were actually meant to live. Regret is what overthinking trades for temporary comfort. In the moment, it feels easier to pause, to delay, to wait until you are more ready, more sure, more perfect. It feels safer to think about all the reasons why something might not work out than to face the discomfort of actually doing it. Overthinking offers you a quiet deal: stay here, don't move, and you won't feel the sting of rejection, the heat of embarrassment, or the pain of failure. And so you stay. You stay in the relationship that no longer serves you. You stay in the job that drains you. You stay silent when you want to speak. You stay dreaming instead of doing. And in that moment, it feels like protection. You get to avoid discomfort, uncertainty, exposure. But what you don't see is the slow growing cost. What you're avoiding in discomfort, you're paying for in time, in energy, in potential, and eventually in regret. Regret doesn't come from failing, it comes from not trying. The greatest pain isn't falling, it's never leaping. It's looking back and realizing that the door was never locked, that the chance was always there, but fear kept you analyzing, hesitating, rationalizing, and ultimately missing it. Overthinking seduces you with the illusion of control. It tells you that if you just think long enough, hard enough, you can avoid all possible pain. But life doesn't work that way. The truth is, pain is part of the deal. Growth hurts, trying is risky, vulnerability is uncomfortable, but those things are also where joy lives, where love lives, where meaning and expansion live. And when you choose comfort over courage, you choose a numb life over a full one. We rarely regret the bold move that didn't work out. We almost always regret the one we never made. People at the end of their lives don't speak of failures with the most pain. They speak of missed chances, unspoken feelings, unlived dreams. Because regret isn't loud at first. It whispers, it builds. It arrives slowly over time when you begin to realize how long you've been sitting at the edge of your life, watching instead of living. Overthinking delays action in the name of safety, but it's a lie. The longer you stay still, the more the fear grows, not the less. The longer you avoid, the heavier the moment becomes, and the more regret begins to take root in your heart, quietly at first, but deeply. You will never be 100% ready. The conditions will never be perfect, but action, imperfect, messy, real action, is what shifts everything. It may be uncomfortable now, but it frees you, it wakes you up. It breaks the trance of endless thought and gives you something that overthinking never can, the chance to actually live. And when you look back, you won't remember every failure, but you will remember every moment you chose to be brave, Presence is the antidote to overthinking. When you return to the present moment fully, honestly, without resistance, the endless loops in your mind begin to dissolve. Overthinking thrives in the past and the future. It feeds on what was and what might be. It spins stories of what could go wrong, what you should have done, how things might fall apart. It projects imaginary outcomes and replays old wounds like a film on repeat. But the present moment has no interest in those stories. The present moment simply is. In the now, there is no failure. There is no rejection. There is no loss, no achievement, no pressure. There is only breath, sensation, awareness. And when you step into that space, even for a second, a profound peace emerges. Not because everything is suddenly perfect, but because you've stepped outside the illusion that your mind was trying to control it all. Overthinking cannot survive in the present, because it relies on time. It needs a past to regret and a future to fear. But presence removes both. It grounds you in what is real. There's a strange paradox that many people live in, constantly preparing for life, but never actually living it, always planning, always reviewing, always second-guessing, but never arriving. That's the trap of overthinking. You think more, but live less. You prepare more, but experience less. The mind tells you that if you just think harder, the fear will go away, the answer will come, the doubt will disappear. But what actually happens is that the more you think, the more tangled you become. Presence doesn't mean everything is figured out. It doesn't mean you stop caring or planning or reflecting. It means you stop being consumed by thoughts and start noticing what's here now. The feel of your breath, the weight of your body, the sounds around you, the light in the room. It is deceptively simple, and yet it holds immense power, because the moment you truly anchor into now, something loosens inside you. The grip of fear, the pressure to get it all right, the heaviness of expectation, it softens. Think of the last time you felt fully alive, not thinking about the moment but in it, maybe watching a sunset, laughing uncontrollably, dancing, holding someone's hand running through the rain. You weren't analyzing, you weren't doubting. You were there. That's presence. And in those moments your thoughts didn't lead the way, your being did. Presence doesn't require effort. It requires surrender. You don't force your way into the now. You relax into it. You breathe. You notice. You allow. And slowly the storm of overthinking loses its power. The truth is, you're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you've forgotten how to be. And when you remember that, even briefly, the next step becomes clear, not because you thought your way into it, but because the silence of presence made space for it to appear. You are not your thoughts. This truth, so simple and yet so easily forgotten, is the key to unlocking the grip overthinking has on your life, the voice in your head, the one that narrates your every move, that judges, criticizes, analyzes, plans, and replays. That voice is not who you are. It is a function of the mind, a tool, but not the self. And yet most people live as if they are that voice. They believe every thought that passes through their mind, identify with every fear, attach to every doubt and call it truth. But thoughts are not facts. They are passing clouds in the vast sky of your awareness. And the moment you begin to observe them rather than become them, everything shifts. Overthinking thrives on identification. It gains power when you fuse your sense of self with whatever story your mind is telling. I'm not good enough. I'll probably fail. They won't understand me. This won't work out. These aren't objective truths. They're mental noise. But when you believe them, when you take them personally, they begin to shape your actions, your choices, your life. You start building your world around limitations that only exist in your imagination. The mind says, you are this fear, you are this failure, you are this insecurity. But the deeper truth, the one that's always been there, is that you are the awareness behind those thoughts. You are the stillness they pass through. You are not the storm. You are the sky. Eckhart Tolle speaks often of the pain, but you spiral, you react, you lose yourself in mental loops. But when you bring presence to those thoughts, when you watch them instead of follow them, you disempower them. You become the witness rather than the victim. And in that witnessing, something sacred happens. You return to yourself. You begin to see clearly. You begin to choose differently, not from fear, not from habit, but from awareness. Try it now. Pause. Take one breath. Notice the next thought that arises. Don't judge it. Don't argue with it. Don't follow it. Just watch it. Notice how it comes and how, if you don't cling to it, it fades. Another one arrives. It fades too, like waves, like weather. And you, constant, steady, present, are still here. This is the power of awareness. It breaks the trance of identification. It reminds you that you have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. That single realization is freedom. Overthinking cannot survive long in the light of observation. It relies on you being unconscious, on you believing that every thought is your voice, your truth, your identity. But when you learn to see your thoughts as passing phenomena, when you step back into the space of presence, you remember what was never lost, your inner stillness, your clarity, your strength, not because the mind has stopped, but because you've stopped believing it's who you are. In the end, overthinking is not your true enemy. It is the illusion of control that the mind creates, a barrier between you and the vast potential of the present moment. It thrives in your fears, your doubts, your need for certainty and perfection. But when you recognize that your thoughts are not you, and that true clarity and power lie in the simple act of being present, everything shifts. The grip of overthinking loosens, and you find the courage to act, to trust, and to live fully. The answers are not in the noise of the mind, but in the quiet awareness beneath it. Step into that awareness and watch how the world begins to align. Fear becomes a passing cloud, doubt fades, and you are left with the powerful truth that all you need to begin to grow, to transform, is already inside you, waiting, always, in the now.